Mr. Zinger's Hat by Carrie Fagan, illustrated by Dusan Jancy. Mr. Zinger's Hat. Every day after school, Leo took his ball into the courtyard. He threw the ball high into the air, and it would hit a brick wall and bounce back, and Leo would try to catch it. And every day Leo saw Mr. Zinger. Mr. Zinger walked around the courtyard over and over. He was small and old, and to Leo looked like an elf or a goblin. He always wore a black suit and hat. He shuffled forward, deep in thought. Mr. Zinger made up stories. The stories were published in magazines and in books, too. Leo's mother would say to him, "Don't disturb Mr. Zinger. He's making up stories. He's working." One afternoon, Leo threw his ball higher than ever before. Up it went, until finally it smacked against the wall. The ball bounced back and zipped across the courtyard, right toward Mr. Zinger. Mr. Zinger didn't even notice. He was too busy thinking. Biff! The ball knocked Mr. Zinger's hat right off his head. "Oi, my hat!" cried Mr. Zinger. He reached up, but the wind had caught his hat and blown it high above the courtyard. Mr. Zinger patted his bald head. "Young man," he called, "help me get my hat." Leo ran. He turned this way and that. The wind swirled the hat about. At last, it started to come down, dipping lower and lower. Leo held out his hands. The hat came down right over Leo's baseball cap. Leo took off the hat and gave it to Mr. Zinger. "So much excitement," Mr. Zinger said. "It makes me tired. Come, young man, let's sit on the bench." So Leo sat on the bench beside Mr. Zinger. "What's your name, young man?" "Leo." "Well, Leo, I wonder why my hat took off like that. Maybe there's something inside it." Mr. Zinger peered into the hat. "What is it? What's inside the hat?" asked Leo. He looked too, but he didn't see anything. "Ah, I see now," said Mr. Zinger. "It's a story trying to get out." "What story?" asked Leo. "Let me see," Mr. Zinger said, peering into the hat with his pale eyes. "Once upon a time there was a man." "Could it maybe be a boy?" asked Leo. "Yes, you're right, a boy. Now, this boy was very poor." "He might be rich," Leo ventured. Mr. Zinger scratched his head. "Why not? He was rich. Rich as a king, an emperor, a Caesar. But also very unhappy. Can you see why?" Leo looked into the hat. He thought for a moment. "Because he had nothing to do?" "Okay. So one day this boy makes a proclamation." "What's a proclamation?" asked Leo. "An announcement. He will give half of his wealth and his possessions to any child who can cheer him up." Children from all over the land lined up in front of the door of the boy's mansion, hoping to be the one. "This ought to be good," said Leo. "The first child," said Mr. Zinger, "offered the boy a gold watch." "Boring," said Leo. The boy thought so too. "The next child brought him an electric guitar." "Yes, but the boy already had one of those, and the other children brought him many more things." "Ooh, diamond, flat screen TV, a canoe, a live monkey?" Yes, and again yes. But the boy either already had those, or else they didn't interest him. He was very disappointed. But just as he was closing the door of his mansion, he saw something. Leo looked into the hat. A boy running toward the door." "Exactly," said Mr. Zinger. "Did the boy running toward the door have a name?" asked Leo. "Of course. Everybody has a name, doesn't he? But I can't quite make it out. Maybe you can." It was dark inside the hat. Leo cocked his ear and listened. "Leo, this boy's name is Leo." "As good a name as any," said Mr. Zinger. So Leo went to the door out of breath. The rich boy said to him, "What have you got that the others don't have?" And Leo held something up. "What was it? What was he holding up?" asked Leo. "You tell me," said Mr. Zinger. "But I don't know," said Leo. "You don't know? Are you sure about that? You knew that the story was about a boy and not a man. You knew that he was rich and not poor. You knew that he didn't want a gold watch. You even knew the name of the boy running to the door. So maybe you knew what this Leo held up." "So, what was it?" Leo thought. He closed his eyes and thought hard. At last he opened them again. "A ball." "A ball?" said Mr. Zinger. "An ordinary ball like your ball?" "Yes," said Leo. "Okay, then," said Mr. Zinger. So Leo held up an ordinary ball, and he said to the rich boy, "Would you like to play catch with me?" I know what the rich boy said. He said yes. "They played all afternoon and the next day too, and became best of friends," said Mr. Zinger. "And Leo didn't even want half of the boy's wealth," said Leo. "He gave it all away." He's some boy, this Leo." "Except for the electric guitar and the live monkey? He kept those." "And that's the end?" asked Mr. Zinger. "Yes, that's the end." "I like it." "I like it too." Mr. Zinger got up with a groan. "And now, young man, I must return to my desk. I have a story to write." "About Leo and the rich boy?" Mr. Zinger put his hat back on his head. "No," he said. "That's not my story. That's your story. But maybe another one will try to get out of my hat. There's no end to them, you know." Mr. Zinger smiled and nodded and walked slowly away. Leo looked at the ball. He threw the ball against the wall and caught it. He did it again and again. He threw it once more, and this time it went very high, hit the wall, and bounced over Leo's head. "I've got it," somebody said. Leo turned. A girl. She caught the ball. A girl came up to him. "Do you want to play catch?" she said. "Sure." For a long time they played catch, then tag, then hide and seek, then finally they were too tired to play anything and sat on the bench. "What's your name?" asked Leo. "Sophie." "Mine's Leo." "Do you want to share my chocolate?" asked Sophie, taking a bar from her pocket. "Sure." They sat there eating the chocolate. Leo took off his baseball cap. He said, "I have a story inside my cap. Ooh, I like stories. Once upon a time there was a boy." Sophie looked into the hat. "Could it be a girl?" she asked. "Okay, a girl. She was rich as a queen, but she wasn't very happy. Do you know why? Because her mother and father had been captured by an ogre?" "Exactly," said Leo.